But one of the things we did was watch what I think might be the healthiest, most loving game of international football that I've ever seen. It was England versus France in the World Cup third place playoff game, which is really like the most Muggins game out of the World Cup. Seeing that, I saw that lineup on the calendar. I thought, oh, when we're at the Stag Do, if we're in the World Cup final as England, following them through the tournament. Now, I'll just say this: I don't watch a minute of Premier League football. I played football when I was a kid. I tune into who's doing well, but I find it so boring to watch football. But there's something in the World Cup. Not sure exactly what it is. There's something in the World Cup that when you tune in, it's exciting. The game means something. The players are there for passion. Now I know there's countries are lines on the sand, and there's probably some divisiveness in it. From a true spiritual perspective, it's probably not. It's not the most loving thing, right? But as a spectator, I get sucked into it. The players are playing with way more heart, I feel, when they're playing for the country than when they're playing for the club that just pays them the most money to play for them, right? Some players play for their childhood club, and I'm sure they're playing with passion. But most players are playing for the club that will pay them the most to play that game for that club. When you're playing for your country and you watch these World Cup games, you feel it. You see a Cape Verde out there playing, DR Congo playing. Like, it's a different passion, and that you feel that watching it, and so it's more exciting to watch these games. And it's the knockouts, and it happens over a short time, so you can get invested like a good TV series or something, right? So it was good. But this third place playoff, like I said, it seems like the most Muggins game. I thought, yeah, France will probably England will play their B team, rest the players, let the other players that came to the tournament that haven't played a game play. France will come in, who looked like the best team throughout the whole tournament up until Spain beat them and smashed us 4-5-0. Didn't happen. England were 4-0 up in the first half. Second half went to 4-3, I think, and then 5-3, and then 5-4, and then Jude Bellingham scored an absolute belter of a goal, incredible run to make it 6-4 to England. And the score is not what matters, but it is nice to see 10 goals in the game of football or soccer to you American fans. But 10 goals in a game is nice. But what stood out the most to me, and the beauty was the contrast of the final on the Sunday night, Spain versus Argentina, is the lack of aggression and seriousness and attachment to outcome in the game made for a much more exciting game, much more skill. People were playing with much less fear and much more joy. And at the end of it, they all come together. Groups of them were praying together. They're all shaking hands, giving big hugs, having conversations with the other team's players, with the team's manager. No animosity whatsoever. You see the Argentina game against Spain. Argentina absolute playing the dark arts, fouling all over. Playing football as a kid was one thing, watching football growing up, and I won't go on about football for too long because I know not everyone's going to be into football, but I just think there's some lessons to be had from this. If you fouled, you fouled. You wouldn't. There was no thought of diving. Then as I got older, stopped watching football. I'd tune in again. I'd be like, "What the heck, man?" Like, especially someone who grew up moving myself. Grew up moving, breakdancing. When I move around on the floor, I watch a breakdancer. I can tell what move they're doing. If you've never done breakdancing and you're watching a breakdancer, you don't know if they're on the shoulder or on the head. You don't really know where they are. Because I've done that, I understand the positions. I've got that kinesthetic awareness. When I watch players get fouled, I'm not saying I have vision. Maybe most people have this vision as well, but I feel like there's sometimes when people see a tackle, and for some people they'll think it's a foul. I'm like, I can tell that player literally whether the center of mass gets dropped too early for it to be affected by the tackle to court. They're like, so players are always diving right nowadays. It's insane to see the level of this such cheating, lack of sportsmanship in football today. It's so sad to see. And I've never seen it expressed so poorly as Argentina in most of their games leading up to the final, and then especially in the final. Now, I think they're just so tired. That's the only thing they've got that they can do that doesn't take energy is to play that way, which I'll tell you not. It definitely takes some energy in a nasty way to do that. But that was just the contrast I wanted to make out, because that England game in the third place playoff, which I went in there with absolutely zero expectation myself. It's like the most non-starter game of the World Cup. Ended up being the best game, but maybe because of a lot of goals, maybe because England won. That's probably a factor for me. I did notice throughout this tournament my addiction to wanting England to do well, and that is like some level of an addiction where there's a buzz when you're going through life when your team's in the competition, and the day they go out, you feel like depleted that night, and then the next day for a couple of days you feel a bit like, oh, something's missing. Like that addiction, that thing that made me happy. For my happiness was somewhat dependent of them continuing to be in the tournament. So once that was gone, and I kind of let go of that, and then this came about, and then I ended up watching people skillful. Like, think about what football is, right? When you remove the amount of money the players get paid, and the celebrity culture around football, and the egos around it, and the sponsorships, and all what it has become, the spectacle of it being live on TV, and the billions and billions of dollar industry that it is. Football is who is the most skillful with a ball, which humans, we love balls, right? We've kind of invented a ball almost, right? Of all different kinds. Who's the most skillful of this with the part of my body that's the furthest from my brain? So the part of my body that I have the least ability to control, because the neural pathways are the furthest from my brain, who's got those neural pathways the best where they can make that ball do what they want? They can control an external physical thing using the part of the body that's the least coordinated. That's what football is. That's some hippie shit right there. That's pretty hippie, like what football is at its core. Like, and I know there's a big difference between someone who can do keepy uppies and skills like that and a freestyler compared to someone on the football playing against other oppositions and making runs and seeing the game from a bigger perspective. But at its core, it's a pretty hippie thing. Like, it's a skill with the ball. And I think that's why people appreciate it. Because, you know, a lot of sports played with the hands, hitting balls, but there's pauses in golf and things like that. You're waiting for it to land, you walk over. Football is just fast-paced. You run on your feet, you kick it with your feet. Right, pretty sick. What it's become is this big industry that you obviously see today. But when you watch a World Cup game like that, where people are playing for the country with passion, they're not attached to the outcome, they're not overly aggressive, they're friends with the other team. That game must have been so fun for them to exist and play it themselves. It was fun from an outsider, probably because it was so fun for them. Sports, I believe, from God's perspective, isn't something that should be as spectated as it is. Let's put it that way. Like, football is hugely over expectated for what it is. But sports is for you to play with your friends in a non-aggressive way, but to challenge your skill and push yourself. There's a threshold, right? We want some level of competitiveness where we're pushing our skill. So it's not just boring. I'm not just completely bored about the whole thing. But we don't want it to be over aggressive where we're like trying to injure each other. We care so much. It's like this injured masculine seriousness. I have to win to prove myself to my own father in a soul level, most likely. That's what my competitive injury comes from, proving myself to my dad. That's where a lot of this has become now. And so to see a game where it didn't have that was actually magical. Like, it was a magical game. And I can only imagine how it was to play. And that's what sports is for the players, right? And it's nice to witness that occasionally.